Hello and welcome to LFC Focus. So the international break is now coming to a close. Premier League football is finally back at the weekend, and what a way to kick it off with Liverpool taking on Spurs at Wembley in the Saturday 12:30 kickoff. I mean, it's an incredibly exciting game. Also a little bit terrifying, and I think that's exactly what you want from every single football match. And this is, of course, the first real big game of the season, not just for us as Liverpool fans, but I think for the Premier League in general. You know, I feel like Spurs are one of those teams that obviously they did lose to Watford last time out, but they're still a side that I think a lot of people are considering will be at least pushing for the title, if not being in the race come the last few games in May or anything like that. So I think obviously you've had big games like Arsenal City and Man U Tottenham, but I feel like Man U and Arsenal, they're not really the kind of teams that anyone thinks will actually be challenging for the title this season. They'll probably be scrapping out to get into the top four. So this is really the first real opportunity for any team to lay down a massive marker in the title race, and that is exactly what we'll be hoping that Liverpool will be doing this weekend. And of course, if we do win, that'll keep up our 100% record and hopefully keep us top of the table on goal difference should Chelsea even get 3 points in whatever game they are playing as well. But yeah, obviously this is also crucially the kind of game that Liverpool fell short in far too many times this season. I think when you think about Spurs, Chelsea and Man United, home and away against those teams, we got a total of 3 points out of a possible 18 and didn't win a single one of those matches. So that's just far too many losses and far too many opportunities passed up to take points off of our rivals for those top places in the Premier League. So if we're serious about trying to win the league, I know a lot of people are looking at this game and saying, you know, maybe a point would be all right. But I think when you look at how well City did last season and how high the bar is at the moment, these are the kind of games we just got to win. We've got to be taking, you know, not just getting 3 points in as many games as possible, but taking as many points off of our rivals as possible. And like I said, this is where we fell short last season, and it's something that we do really need to improve on. We need to be beating our top six rivals because it's something we did an awful lot a couple seasons ago, and I think that really helped us to secure a top four place. So if we want to win the league, we've got to be beating our title race rivals in games like this. So obviously, it's also the early kickoff as well, which is going to annoy a fair few people, especially after the international break. It feels like we've been hit with that one an awful lot. Obviously, this time last year, we played City away in the 12:30 after the international break, and that didn't really go well. So it's one of the reasons that, as I mentioned, the game's ever so slightly terrifying, because there always is that feeling of slight dread hanging over you that maybe this could go just as horribly wrong. But I think I'd actually prefer to play a big team in this kind of situation rather than a small one, because the thing is, if we were playing Palace or Leicester or anyone like that in this 12:30, that as many of their players aren't going to have gone away on international duty. I feel like most of their players, apart from maybe the huge ones like the Zahas or the Vardys or anything like that, will have been in training all the way through the international break and wouldn't have gone away to faraway countries or anything like that. But Spurs have had a similar problem to Liverpool. You know, I don't know whether Lucas Moura has gone away with Brazil or anything like that, but a lot of their stars, a lot of their first team players are big internationals and will have gone away to play for their respective nations. So while I do hate the 12:30 kickoff and it always does impact our performances, and if I had the choice, I'd still rather this game took place on like a Sunday evening or anything like that, because those are the kind of times when Liverpool play best. And also obviously with Paris Saint-Germain on the Tuesday, while it does mean that we have a nice gap between those games, it does kind of mess up our schedules in terms of when the players need to be in peak condition, what time of day they need to be ready to play football to the best of their ability. So it's a little bit of a pain, but hopefully the fact that it affects Spurs just as badly should mean that there isn't a huge disparity in terms of the way the teams perform or anything like that. So looking at our team news going into this game, in terms of injuries, it's actually been a pretty good international break for Liverpool. You know, in the past, we've been hit really badly. The one last season where Joe Gomez gets injured right before that crucial run into the Champions League final does spring to mind, and I think Gomez was a player a lot of us did have an eye on going into this international break, thinking I really hope he doesn't get injured because he has started the season so well. The only real sort of high profile injury that's come out of this international break is Adam Lallana. Obviously, it's sort of, I don't know whether it's going to be like 2 weeks or maybe sometime even up to a month that he's going to be out, but he's definitely not available for this game. Although in the grand scheme of things, I don't want to be cruel to Lallana, but if you could pick a player to have got injured on international duty, he would have almost been fairly high up the list because I can't see him playing this game. Obviously, we would like to use him over this run of fixtures because it does get incredibly congested, but I couldn't really see Lallana playing any role at all, to be honest, during this game against Spurs. So we've come through pretty much unscathed. Obviously, you have the same problem as we always do with the Brazilians. Their last game is on Wednesday night, so it's tonight, but it's like in the wee hours of the morning or something like that. So even though they're not playing, which is good, so they hopefully won't have sort of been exhausted on international duty or anything like that, they are working on a very different time scale, and that is where the 12:30 kickoff does come into it as well. I think 12:30 here will be like 7 in the morning where they've been training for Brazil, so that's going to be a bit of a shock for them and could come into how Jurgen Klopp chooses to select his team for this game. I mean, when they come back to Melwood, even though they're not playing in that game on Wednesday, they're still with the Brazil squad, so they'll probably come back on Friday. So I reckon it's the kind of thing where Jurgen Klopp will probably put a session on for them in the evening, and that's where he'll actually judge whether they'll be ready. But hopefully all three of those players will be coming back absolutely fine. And apart from that, apart from maybe Dejan Lovren, who we had a little bit of news over the international break, he's going to be laid off for another month or so. So, you know, on the downside, we're not going to have him during this run of fixtures, but on the plus side, we at least now know roughly when Dejan Lovren's going to come back. But apart from that, we've done fairly well throughout this international break in terms of injuries. So as for the starting 11, I think it has to be Alisson Becker in goal. You know, obviously we've got all those issues about him coming back late, and I think it's less so like physical fitness and more like mental focus that I think is going to be the problem here, because you worry that with his body clock being messed around, and like I said, this game is going to feel like it kicks off at 7:30 in the morning for our Brazilian players. You worry that that might affect his focus and could cause him to make an error or anything like that. But hopefully there's a plan already in place to make sure jet lag isn't a problem for these players. And I think Alisson, he just has to start because he's so good. And it's going to be really interesting to see how he fares in this game, because this is the first time we could see Alisson be put under some proper pressure. You know, we haven't really seen him make a string of saves in a game so far this season. He's normally limited to one impressive save per game. So this will be a great opportunity to see how Alisson fares when he comes under sustained pressure from the opposition. So I think he definitely starts in goal. Then your back four, I can't see any surprises coming in here. I think it's Trent at right back, Gomez and Van Dijk at centre back, and then Andrew Robertson at left back. And I think it's going to be really interesting as well to see how that back four gets tested in this game, because I'll come on to how Spurs, I think, are going to play a little bit more later on in the video, but I think this will be the first big test, like with Alisson, of them coming under sustained pressure and having to deal with something other than just the opponent lumping it up to the big man or playing crosses into the box or anything like that. The midfield is where I think it's going to be really interesting what Jurgen Klopp does with his selection. There are a lot of people crying out for Fabinho, and I do think his skill set makes him very good for this game, but if you haven't seen the video I did on Fabinho a couple of days ago, do check it out, because I go quite in depth about what level I think he's at already and when I think we're going to start seeing him actually play football for Liverpool, because he hasn't actually kicked a ball in competitive matches yet. But a spoiler alert for that video, if you don't want to hear this, I don't think he's going to start this game at all. I think it's out of the question that Fabinho plays this game. It just comes too early, especially after the international break, and given that he hasn't kicked a competitive ball for Liverpool yet, to throw him into a match like this against Spurs at Wembley would just be madness, to be honest. So I can't see Fabinho starting, even though I'd love him to start, because he's perfect for this game. So I think in his place you put Jordan Henderson as the number 6, and then I think Milner and Keita either side of him. I think it will be interesting how we work the midfield here, and I reckon we almost go with Milner dropping deep to help out Jordan Henderson, and that's where maybe you could make an argument for Wijnaldum playing over Milner, just so that Wijnaldum can drop deep and we almost play 2 number 6s. And then Keita's going to be so important in linking up with that attack, because you'd expect we'll get opportunities on the counter-attack this game, and that might actually be how we look to win it. And Keita's going to be so important in driving forward with the ball, picking it up and linking up and getting the ball to those front 3 players. So it is going to be interesting, and I don't think it's nailed on that will be the midfield, but I think it certainly makes sense in terms of Henderson is probably the most defensive number 6 we've got. I think he'd be really good at breaking the lines and hopefully tracking back and helping out the defence as well. I think Milner's ability to just be a hard-working body in midfield who can throw in tackles, be physical and never give anyone too much time on the ball will be absolutely crucial. And also his ability to drop into like the full-back roles, because when Trent does want to get forward, when Robertson does want to get forward, we're going to need a midfielder to step in and just make sure that we don't get caught out on the break at any point. We don't get caught out like we did at Wembley last season. So I think Milner will be important there. And then, like I said, Keita Keita will be so pivotal because we need him to link up with the attack and make sure we still get the goals that could win us this game. And then speaking of the attack, no surprises here. I think it'll be Salah, Firmino and Mane. Obviously, there's all this stuff about Firmino and whether or not he'll be available, but I think actually the fact that he played for Brazil and scored for Brazil as well will probably do us a huge favour because he has looked ever so slightly off it in terms of his match fitness so far this season. So I think getting a game for Brazil and crucially finding the net as well will hopefully do his confidence the world of good and hopefully get him back up to the level where he can play top level football for Liverpool like we saw from him last season. And while you have got that issue about coming back, hopefully the fact that he didn't play on Wednesday will help. And, you know, Firmino is obviously used to this, whereas Alisson, I don't think he is. I don't think Fabinho is either. But Firmino has done that international break to the 12:30 kickoff trip plenty of times. So hopefully he knows what he's doing in that situation by now and he knows how to still put in a fantastic performance. So taking a look at Spurs then, obviously they are coming into this game off the back of a pretty bad result against Watford, especially after what they did to Man U. I think they will have been wanting to capitalise on that and bring that momentum forward and actually establish themselves as title contenders. But not just the fact they lost at Watford, the manner they lost, the way that Watford managed to just find a weakness and exploit it so easily, and Spurs just could not find a way to win when they weren't playing well, will have done their confidence a huge knock. And I think it does almost change the balance of this game, because I think if the teams were level on points, it's the kind of match where you look at and think most managers would almost be happy with a draw here. But I think Spurs are looking at this and thinking they could end up being 5 points off the league leaders already, whether those league leaders are Chelsea or not. If they lose to Liverpool, they're 6 points off as well. So I think they really want to win this game, not just because of that Watford game, but also in pure mathematical terms. They can't afford to fall that far behind this early on in the season if they want to be considered serious title challengers. So I think Spurs are really going to go for this game, and I think that will sort of change the dynamic and potentially cause Liverpool to play a little bit more defensively as well. I think the players that are going to be key for Spurs going forward are going to be Dele Alli and Lucas Moura. Now, obviously, Son is now back from his international duty in the Asian Games. Thankfully, for me, he's avoided military duty. I think that's a nice thing. I think it would be a bit annoying if a footballer as good as him, someone that I actually like to watch play, got suspended from playing football for 2 years and had to go to war with South Korea or anything like that. So it's possible that he could come in for one of those two. But I think whichever of those three plays as the two, you know, Ali normally lies a bit deeper and Moura kind of accompanies Kane, but he drops off and drops wide a little bit more. Those two that get picked for that game will be so pivotal, because they're going to be the ones who are going to try and make those late runs into the box, who are going to try and pull our defence this way and that and cause them all sorts of problems, because I think our centre-backs are obviously going to be primarily occupied with Harry Kane. He is the main goal threat for Spurs and they'll look to get the ball to him any way they possibly can. So both Gomez and Van Dijk, because it is almost a two-man job dealing with Harry Kane, because you just can't allow him any space whatsoever, they'll be preoccupied with him, and that's where I think the midfield will be so important. And that's why I'm saying that I think Milner, or whoever plays alongside Henderson, or whoever plays as the two most deep line midfielders, will play as a sort of double number 6, just to avoid allowing Ali or Moura or Son any kind of space there. So I think we need to be absolutely vigilant there, and it's one of the reasons that I think we could see a defensive performance for Liverpool, because normally we play with two advanced midfielders. Normally Milner and Keita would both look to get forward, and the fullbacks would look to get forward as well. But I think the fullbacks are going to have to sit a little bit deep to try and stop that service to Kane, because Spurs are another team like us that thrive on the use of their fullbacks in their system. They love to get the ball out to Trippier, out to Ben Davies or Danny Rose or whoever's on those flanks, and get them to whip in crosses to Harry Kane or to Ali and Son and everything like that. So while we love to get our fullbacks forward away from home at Wembley against a really tough side like Spurs, I think Trent and Robertson are going to have to put in massive defensive shifts this game, and also players like Milner and Henderson are going to have to be aware that whenever those fullbacks do go forward, they've got to be so alert to make sure they are capable of dropping into those positions at any time. So all of this coming together, plus the fact that Spurs are going to be the team that really want the 3 points in this game, to me does suggest that we're not going to park the bus. You know, we're not going to put 10 men behind the ball or anything like that, but we could see a really stoic defensive performance of Liverpool. And obviously the key thing now is, with Van Dijk now settled into the side, with Alisson there as well, with top quality fullbacks like the ones we've got, and Joe Gomez playing so well, we're capable of playing in a defensive manner. We're capable of saying, actually, you know what, we're going to sit back and just allow you to come onto us and say, give us your best shot. And then the crucial thing as well is that we've got players at the other end of the pitch like Salah and Mane and Firmino and Keita as well, who are capable of being so devastating on the counter-attack that if we want to invite Spurs onto us, it creates so much space for those players to do devastating damage. And I think when it comes to the way we attack against Spurs, I take a lot of encouragement from the way they played against Man U, because while they did win 3-0 and all the things they did against Man U we're going to have to watch out for, like Harry Kane scoring off crosses, like Lucas Moura making those late runs into the box and making fast darting runs behind our defenders or anything like that, Spurs were pretty sloppy in possession as well. And it's one of the main reasons that Man U looked so impressive in that first half was they pressed Spurs, they got the ball off them, and so many times Spurs, especially their centre-backs, were just giving the ball away cheaply in areas that were so dangerous. And I think if they play anything like that, and with this being a 12:30 Saturday kickoff, with it being so soon after the international break, there's no reason why you shouldn't expect a little bit of sloppiness from players in that kind of environment. If they give the ball away like they did against Man United, then our attack will absolutely punish them to maximum effect, especially with the form that players like Salah and Mane are in. So I think this is going to be a really interesting matchup, and one that I think we will definitely see a slightly different side from Liverpool. I think if we're going to win it, we are probably going to have to grind it out. I can't see us sort of blowing them away 4-0 or 3-0 or anything like that. I can actually see this almost being like a 1-0 or a scabby 2-1 or a 2-0 where we grab a late goal in stoppage time or anything like that when they've sent the goalkeeper forward or whatever. But I'm really excited to see how Liverpool deal with this challenge, because obviously it's, like I said, it's a fixture we fell short in last season, and I feel like we've come along such a long way since that game against Spurs. Our defensive record is so much better that I really want to see us get revenge for that 4-1 and also lay down what would be an absolutely massive marker in the title race if we got those 3 points and kept up our perfect record to start off the season. So that is all for today's video. Thank you guys very much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, then why not give it a like? If you're new around here as well, hit that subscribe button there. Check out some of the videos that have been out on the channel in the past few days, weeks, months, whatever. Don't forget to follow at LFC Focus TV on Twitter, and I'll be back on Saturday after the game with the post-match reaction after we've hopefully gone back to the top of the league with 15 points. Bye for now.